when I was about, I would say 7, 8 years old, my dad came home with a nail gun and shot with his bow. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, it was, whenever I seen that thing, I knew I wanted to kill one. I knew it, I wanted it. I was gonna do it one day, and I finally had the opportunity about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It was the first time I went out to this place, and it was a good buddy of mine, Scott Hill, took me out there hunting, and he dropped me off the blind. He said, "There's a couple good whitetail coming in there."
What was that? Sarita?
Sarita?
Down back past Kingsville?
Yeah, we're actually on the west side of 77. So there's not too many Nilgai over there, but they're there. So he dropped me off at the blind, kind of gave me he gave me a good warm feeling that I was going to shoot a good buck that morning. And I told him, I said, "Man, I think I'm going to shoot a big old bull in the morning." And he kind of laughed, you know, and he ain't shot one out there yet. And this is his first year hunting this place. He's been hunting there pretty hard, though, for about 3 months prior. So he drops me off at the blind. And I remember seeing a buck underneath the feeder that was old, a good management buck. I could tell he was wide. Couldn't see how many points he was, but I can tell it was a good 5.5-year-old plus deer. And I was watching him through my binoculars. And I remember I seen this guy come out 40 yards from the blind. That whitetail in the background did not mean anything at this point. I mean, to see something this size come 40 yards from a deer blind, it amazes you. I mean, they're a lot bigger than you think they are. He ain't never killed one. Having one at 40 yards, it's unreal. I mean, you can feel their breath. I mean, you can hear it. So I remember putting that gun out the window, and it was still real early in the morning. I remember shooting. I knew I hit it, heard the hit. He ran off, and the first thing that came to my mind is, I could tell my buddy, "I told you so." And we're hunting borderline Kennedy down South Texas. We're hunting border fence of Kennedy, and people would probably, the whitetail there are ridiculous. I mean, they've got some big deer, but when this nail guy came out, I thought about whenever I was 8 years old, seeing my dad come home with one of these things, and I knew I wanted to kill him. And I took the opportunity, took the time, like thanks Scott Hill for letting it happen, but I got him. I shot him behind the shoulder with a 270 90 grain bullet, custom load. He ran maybe 75 yards and just plowed up. And I mean, you talk about excitement. I ended up going to get my buddies, and we all loaded him up. But I kind of wanted to surprise him, but I couldn't move this thing. I mean, I think we weighed him out at 827 pounds is how much he weighed. Biggest one I killed out there. And they've killed about 8 before I did. And he was definitely by the biggest. His horns are, one's 10 1/4 and one's 9 7/8. And that's a trophy. He scores 38. A trophy nail guy's 30. He scores 38. So they measure lengths and circumference of each horn, and that's where they come up with weight. But that's one of my best hunts right there by far. By far, that's one of my favorite hunts. I've killed 3 other nail guys since then, but he was my first and my most memorable.